Nobody told me what they were. I walked into Nokron and found one. A tower of bone, seated on a massive throne like a dead queen who never got the memo. Not a corpse, not an enemy left to rot, a mummy. And the size. I need you to understand the size. These things would make a fire giant look thin. The cavern ceiling above the eternal city looked lower than it should, like their presence was physically pressing it down. There's a word for what this felt like. Ceremonial. Like they weren't abandoned here. Like someone took time. Like someone meant for this. You don't build a throne that size for something you're trying to forget. Someone wanted them to look like this. The question is why. There are 4 of them. 2 in Nokstella, 1 in Nokron, and 1 that ended up somewhere else entirely. I didn't leave because I was done looking. I left because I felt like I was being watched. The Noks built their entire civilization around something that couldn't move. That was the plan. We don't have much on the Noks. Murals, dust, hints, but what we do have points to something very specific. These giants, the chair crypt mummies, weren't decorations. They weren't trophies. They were tutelary deities, guardians bound to the city's fate, not chosen to protect it, bound to it. Their fate and Nokron's fate were the same thing. They couldn't leave. That was the point. When you cast claim and bubble sorceries like Oracle Bubbles and Great Oracular Bubble, the glowing crest that appears, it's the silhouette of this throne. The Claymen aren't just random underground enemies. They're the priestly class of this civilization, performing rites in the shadow of that shape. The Great Ghost Gloveworts are a clue. The item description calls them flowers that comfort heroic spirits, tribute to those who died the most glorious of deaths, so their stories could become legend. These aren't wildflowers that just happen to grow here. Someone placed them deliberately at the feet of something they believed deserved that honor. The chair crypt isn't furniture. It's the central religious icon of an entire people, ancestors, protectors, the foundational pillars of whatever Nokron once was. Picture the city at its height, crowds moving through the streets under the gaze of something enormous and utterly still, where they feared, loved, probably both. The way you love something that could crush you but keeps choosing not to. Their stillness wasn't weakness. It wasn't death. It was the job. No sword, no movement, just presence. Eternal, unbroken, unyielding. And then the city fell. The giants couldn't leave to save it. They could only watch it die, and then sit there, in the ruins, for the rest of time. The job never ended. It just stopped mattering. The Noks didn't pray for a god. They tried to build one. They were serious alchemists. Silver tears are strange, malleable things described as silver that tries to imitate life, not create it. Imitate it. Living weapons, animated constructs, spirits bound to metal and stone. Everything they built was a copy reaching towards something it could never fully become. The silver tear husk item description puts it plainly. The silver tear makes mockery of life, reborn again and again into imitation. Perhaps, one day, it will be reborn a lord. Perhaps one day, the Noks built their entire divine ambition on a material that was still practicing. So they tried to make a god, a lord of night, a being to rule their sky, to lead them into the age of stars. Not found, not gifted, made, in a laboratory, by hand. And we don't have to guess about this one. The Mimic Tear, one of the most powerful spirit ashes in the game, has it in the item description. Mimic tears are the result of an attempt by the Eternal City to forge a lord. That's not theory. That's the game confirming it. And the giants are what happened when it didn't work. Look at the robes, the thrones. That's not burial. That's preparation. The Noks dressed them in the same silk worn by their highest ranking members. Night maidens, sword stresses, and then waited for the vital spark to arrive. It never did. These weren't outsiders or captured enemies dressed up for ceremony. These were the Noks themselves, or what the Noks were trying to become. So they were left with these enormous, immobile things, not dead, not alive, just unfinished, each throne a sarcophagus for a god that was never born. And one of the thrones in Nokstella is empty, same size, same design, an attempt that was abandoned before anything was ever seated in it. The great ghost gloveworts aren't reverence here, they're guilt. The Noks bound heroic spirits into these husks, hoping to ignite something divine. Real souls, sacrificed for an experiment that failed. The flowers are an apology to the dead for what was done to them. Nokron didn't just fall, it became a monument to its own worst idea, a gallery of failed saviors. Proof that the Noks reached for something they had no business touching. The part I can't shake, they almost got there. These aren't failed gods. They're mothers, and that's somehow worse. The item description for Albinoric blood clot calls them life forms made by human hands. Not born, made. The Erd Tree won't even acknowledge them. Many believe them to live impure lives, untouched by the Erd Tree's grace. They were created outside the Golden Order, and the Golden Order never forgot it. And yet someone made them anyway. You've probably run into the giant Albinoric woman if you've done Latenna's quest. Massive, sorrowful, sitting deep in the consecrated snowfield. She tends nests, she makes children. Some people call her a progenitor, a mother to Albinorics who don't have one. That word, progenitor, is where this theory starts. Because what if that's what the chair crypt mummies were? Not guardians, not experiments, mothers, enormous vessels seated in creative slumber, meant to birth new forms of life into the world. The Noks were obsessed with creating life. The Albinorics are one result of that. But these giants might be an earlier attempt, a prototype, before the Noks figured out what they were doing. And the architecture doesn't let you forget it. Shapes that feel uncomfortably uterine. A throne can be a womb if the city decides the seat is sacred enough. The Albinoric line has this desperate, searching quality, always reaching for seeds, for brood, for a new beginning. Like something was lost upstream, like the source dried up and nobody told them why. The blue-silver set worn by Albinoric archers is described as born from the same mother as the archers themselves. The game is telling you directly there was a mother, a single shared source, something that created both the Albinorics and the material they wear. And whatever that source was, it's not there anymore. If this theory is right, their stillness isn't power, it isn't ceremony, it's waiting. They were mothers who never got to mother, progenitors whose children are scattered or gone or never came at all. And the cruelest part, the children who did survive went looking for a mother they'd never find, because she's still sitting in the dark, waiting for them to come home. The Noks didn't build the giants, they found them. That's the third theory. And it might be the most unsettling one, because it means nobody actually knows what these things are. You've probably walked past raw ruins without thinking much about them. Crumbling structures along the Ul and Ainzel rivers, half swallowed by time. The raw are barely a footnote in this world's history, but they might predate everything. The Erd Tree, the Golden Order, the Noks themselves. So picture this. The Noks arrive underground and find these enormous seated figures already there. No instructions, no explanation. They don't know where they came from or what they were for, but they recognize the weight of them, the authority. So they do what civilizations always do. They build around them, claim them, lay flowers at their feet and call them ancestors. The great ghost gloveworts in this version aren't guilt. They're not grief. They're borrowed reverence. A people honoring something they didn't fully understand and decided to own anyway. The river running past those ruins is called the Ul, a name some people think belongs to the Noks themselves, which means this might have been their backyard, which means the giants were sitting there waiting long before the Noks ever arrived. There are no item descriptions for the chair crypt mummies, none. The game has nothing to say about them directly. Even the lore system has forgotten what they are. Raw in origin, Nox in purpose, a mystery by the time we get there. These giants aren't a single story. They're a palimpsest, written over so many times the original text is almost gone. Almost. The giants you fight in Elden Ring aren't the real giants. They're what's left after the real ones were erased. Go to Caelid. Go to the mountaintops. Look at what's half buried in the scarlet rot and snow. Skulls the size of cathedrals. Upper torsos that make the fire giant look like a child wearing his father's armor. The fire giant's own remembrance. The item you get for killing him calls him a trifling giant. The game's words, not mine. That's how far the scale goes. These are the Titans, the first ones, here before the Erd Tree, before the Greater Will, before any of it. Old gods of a world the Golden Order needed everyone to forget. And then Marika arrived. And they didn't survive that. The Purge was violent, chaotic. The Titans were hunted to extinction and left where they fell. Their bones, so enormous, they just became part of the landscape. Landmarks, scenery. The Golden Order didn't bury them. It just waited for everyone to forget what they were looking at. But underground, something different happened. The Nox didn't let their giants rot in the dirt. They dressed them in silk. They built thrones. They seated them like queens and placed flowers at their feet, which sounds like reverence, until you remember what the Nox were doing with silver tears and alchemical arts. Were they honoring the Titans? Or were they repurposing them? Either way, the pattern is the same. Surface, forgotten corpses. Underground, imprisoned idols. The Golden Order destroyed them in the sun. The Nox desecrated them in the dark. Being a giant in the lands between was always a death sentence. The only question was whether you died in the sun or in a chair. The Nox didn't just lose. They were found guilty. 4 theories. 4 different tragedies: hubris, loneliness, forgetting, extinction. But every single one of them lands in the same place. Because whatever the chair crypt mummies actually are, the cities built around them are places of treason. Nokron, Nokstella, hidden underground, cut off from the Erd Tree's light. That's not geography, that's a statement. The Nox looked at the sky, the real sky, the one the Greater Will owns, and decided they wanted a different one. They reached for another lord. They built cities in the dark and filled them with knowledge the Golden Order would never sanction. And we have proof. Hidden in Night's sacred ground, the most sacred part of Nokron, there's a blade, the Fingerslayer blade. The item description calls it proof of the high treason committed by the Eternal City, a weapon born of a corpse, soaked in blood, hidden at the heart of the city. A blade designed to harm the Greater Will itself. They weren't just dreaming about another lord. They were building the tools to kill the one they had. The throne wasn't just a seat, it was a reliquary. Architecture designed to house both the giant and the weapon. The chair and the blade were meant to be found together. Like someone wanted to make sure we understood what this place was for. There's one more detail. The blade can't be wielded by those without a fate. They built the weapon. They built the throne. They had everything except the one thing you can't manufacture. And there's something else found near those thrones. Celestial dew. The game calls it a night tear. A hidden tear found in the Eternal City. The description says that once upon a time, the stars of the night sky guided fate, and this is a recollection of those times. A recollection. Something that remembers a different cosmic order. Found sitting at the feet of the giants, in the same city that built a blade to wound the Greater Will itself. Even the thrones are making a statement. The backrests are carved with an inverted flower. In a world where flowers grow toward the Erd Tree's light, these point down, into the earth, away from the gold. The architecture isn't decorative, it's a declaration. That's not rebellion, that's high treason. The highest crime in a world where divine order is everything, and the giants sit at the center of it, witnesses, monuments, maybe evidence. Whatever they were, failed gods, grieving mothers, borrowed relics, hunted titans, they're all part of the same story. A civilization that looked at the light and said no, and paid for it in silence. The thrones aren't just seats, they're a verdict. The cities fell, the Noks scattered, the bones outlasted everything they were meant to hold, but here's what I keep coming back to. The greater will won. The golden order won. And somehow, looking at those thrones, it doesn't feel like winning. There are 4 giant thrones in this world. 2 in Nokstella, 1 occupied, 1 empty, 1 in Nokron, and then 1 that made it out. In Celia, the town of sorcery, there's a throne identical to the ones underground. Same stone, same swirling night motifs, but this one is on the surface, in the sunlight, in a town still breathing. And it's empty. No skeleton, no robes, no flowers at its feet, just a vacant seat. And underneath it, not a finger slayer blade, not a great ghost glovewort. It's Lusat's glintstone staff, the staff of one of the founding glintstone sorcerers, hidden where a god was supposed to be. Think about what that means. The other thrones were reliquaries built to house giants, and the weapons meant to kill a god. This one was repurposed. The chair stayed. Everything else changed. Whatever this throne was originally built for, Celia had a different idea. So what does this one mean? The Nokstella throne is empty because nothing ever sat in it. But this one is empty and it's on the surface, in the sunlight. That's not abandonment. That's a destination. If the giants were failed gods, was this the one that actually woke up? If they were progenitor mothers, did this one succeed? Did it birth its lineage and walk away? Or was it never filled at all? A seat held open for a lord of night who was promised but never arrived. The Noks were banished for their treason. But Celia survived. On the surface, in the sunlight, with an empty throne and no explanation. Maybe the empty chair isn't a sign of failure. Maybe something left. And the question that keeps me up, the one I can't answer, is whether leaving was a victory or just a different kind of abandonment. I want to know what you think that empty throne in Celia means. Comment your answers or drop a crown emoji below. Nobody won here. Not the Noks. Not the Golden Order. Not the giants on the thrones. The ruins don't read like books. They read like tombstones. Weathered, incomplete, and just enough to hurt. They wore ancient robes in a city that used silence as law. They had a plan that was as audacious as anything in this world. And it failed. The Noks weren't alone in that. A lot of hands have reached for the sky in this world. Most of them ended up as ruins and footnotes. The chair crypt mummies are just the most honest version of that story. They don't hide what they are. They sit there, enormous and still, and they let you look. Failed gods, grieving mothers, borrowed queens, hunted titans, maybe all 4, maybe something else entirely. It doesn't matter which theory is right. For most of them, the ending is the same. Seated or empty, silent either way. Beneath the sky of false stars, or standing in sunlight that might not mean what we think it means. We walk around them, we feel the air change, we feel the weight of it, and then we leave. Back into the world, back toward the Erdtree's gold. They don't follow, they don't stir, they just watch history keep walking by. And maybe that's the most terrifying thing about them. Not that they failed, but that they remember everything, and we keep forgetting.